Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for another all-new episode of The Crowning Achievement, the show where we explore the ins and outs of some of your favorite esports personalities. My name is Fire Blaster, and I'll be your host through this trial and tribulations of going through these guys' personalities and figuring out who they are. Today's guest is ready and available. Let me go ahead and bring them on, and then we'll do our introductions. Hello?
Hello there.
And there is our guest. So, our guest today is known for throwing Gordos and Waddle Dees and Waddle Doos all over the place. The king of Dreamland and best known for King Dedede player in America and arguably the world. Please help me in welcoming today's guest, Atomsk.
Hello there. It's nice to be on this.
Yeah, I was definitely interested. King Dedede is definitely one of my favorite characters to watch play with because of all the different traps and stuff that the character has to do to be relevant in the meta game. So definitely one of those things. And like I said, you're definitely up there, arguably one of the best, if not considered, having some of the best results for the character as currently. So.
Yeah, it's very very accurate. I think there was a period of time where I was the standout best one, but it's
Mm,
always been like a ebb and flow. Like
yeah,
sometimes I'll do very well. Sometimes if Zaki goes out to something, he'll do very well.
yeah, Zaki is definitely a great DDD player in their own right. Uh, Fantastic person. I met them. Let's see, right towards the tail end of Smash 4 over a Smash and Splash, which was one of their breakout tournaments. So that was pretty cool to watch their DDD compared to our American DDD brethren. Let's go ahead and get started with this interview real quick. What region are you from?
I am from Tri-State. I live in New Jersey.
Nice, nice. So with Tri-State, that's for the viewers at home, what incorporates Tri-State if they don't know what that is.
Uh, so outside of Smash, Tri-State usually is New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut.
Hmm.
However, for whatever reason, inside the Smash community, it basically is New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia.
Oh, fair, fair. So you got in Tri-State, you guys got a lot of really heavy hitters from what I've seen in at the top level is definitely quite stacked. So
Yeah, Tri-State in general, ever since Brawl, has just been like this hive mind of just super duper talented players.
right, yeah, and speaking of being a hive mind, if you guys haven't already followed the Twitch channel and you're new to the channel, greatly appreciate you if you give me a follow. The goal is to get to 200 followers by the end of July. We're trying to get there by slowly creeping our way. We're kind of close. We got like 50 more followers, so it'd be greatly appreciated if you gave us that. How long have you been going to events?
I am definitely one of the people that has spent far more time in Smash in general than a lot of people.
Right.
I believe I started going to events towards the end of 2008 or 2006, I think, because I've been in the scene for like over 15 years.
Wow, that's quite a accomplishment to be able to have that much time in the community. 15 years. I'm put it in perspective, guys at home. I'm 30 years old, so he's been in the community half of my lifetime. So that's quite an accomplishment.
We're
Just
the same age.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. At 15, I don't think there was a brawl scene where I'm from because I'm from Kansas. From people at home that don't aren't aware from where I'm at, but it's crazy because I don't think my mom and dad would have let me go to brawl tournaments, and I think the closest scene really to me would be in Wichita, and I don't think my mom and dad are gonna make me take me 2 hours to go to a tournament. I don't think that would have happened.
I actually do believe your state had like a scene. I don't remember specifically if these players were from it, but there was pretty good players back then during Brawl. Like name, I think their name was Domo. There was Clell. There was
Yep.
I think MJG was around that area
Yep.
too.
MJG's Kansas City. Yep.
Yep.
Steeler. Yep.
Yeah, you guys had a lot of good people. I hung out with them a lot back in the day.
Zeton.
Yeah,
Yep.
Z.
Yeah, definitely the Brawl vets. Shout out to the Brawl vets. I met them at the beginning of Smash 4, and a lot of them are still really good friends of mine.
Wow.
So appreciate the
Cheese is now
follow.
following.
You know, every follow helps us get to that goal, so we greatly appreciate that. Let's go ahead and what inspired you to be start in esports? Was there anything in particular that like intrigued you to start doing this?
So when I was really young,
Mhm.
um, I got very lucky with a lot of the people that I grew up with, like in school and whatnot.
Mhm.
One of the people that I've known since kindergarten is someone that you might know the name of Dan Salvato.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I went to school from kindergarten to when we graduated high school.
Nice.
Him and my friend Peter used to constantly go to Dan's basement and we'd play Super Smash Brothers all the time because you're a little kid. That's like the fun game to play with your friends. It's very competitive.
Mhm.
And one day I came over to his basement and he's like, "Hey man, look at this video I found." And it was a video of like way back then, melee players doing like advanced tech.
Mhm.
And obviously, I was one of those people where I was like, "Wow, how do you do that? There's no way. It's way too fast and things like that." And then we sat down and we started to learn. And my whole goal was basically at that point in time, I just wanted to be the best out of my friends. And Dan had figured out how to do a little bit of the Falco stuff that you see,
Mhm.
like pillar combos and like you could short hop laser. And I was like, well, I need to figure out how I can learn my own stuff and try to advance my skill. And so, 14-ish, 15 at the time. What do I do when I don't know what I should be doing in a video game? Okay, cool. I'm going to go to gamefaqs.com and I'm going to see if there's anything if I can learn about what I'm trying to do to see if I can get an edge.
Right.
And back then, they had a whole mess of like character specific guides, and I was very unfortunately playing Dr. Mario in Melee.
You.
And I was like, "Oh, let me learn these things." And I learned specifically what gimping was. I learned what made Dr. Mario's excel at it, like how
Mhm.
his back air was very good at sending people like at a downward angle. I learned how to chain grab, and so there was a little event that my school did where it was called like a activity night,
Mhm.
and they had a gaming night with it. So I played in that and I beat Dan in the winners finals, which was like a best of one thing. And I was like, okay, cool. This guide definitely helped. And I remember I was sitting there afterwards and I was looking at them and I was like, hey, don't you want to potentially see if you know the kids from the other school that like is near us play? We could see
Mhm.
how well we do against them. And I remember back then Dan was like, "No, I don't really feel like doing much of that." And I was like, "Okay, well, I wonder if there's more for me to progress from this situation." And I noticed on the bottom of the guide it linked to Smashboards.
Oh, the old
And
Smash Board days.
yeah, so I got into Smashboards. I found my region. I found people close to me, and I started going to Smash Fests, and it went from there.
Nice. That's a very, you know, like humble beginnings is what I would say. Like that's some typical gamers. Like wouldn't say so much nowadays for the Zoomers, but for us Boomers, it's definitely one of those things. Like that's how it started for us. Was like in like our childhood playing those games like hey we're having fun and then hearing of a tournament through hearsay or through smash boards or game facts which you shouted out which was awesome like one of those things like I remember those days like you would look up game facts for anything like game cheats walkthroughs the sort
Exactly.
like crazy how like far in advance we are now that like game facts is like a dinosaur non-existent anymore, and they have all these like really cool stuff now. So It's a nice throwback.
A
Oh.
lot of the things that I used back then are like
Mhm.
what are considered dinosaurs now. Because at the start, when I was competing in Melee, they used a program called DC++, which I don't believe that still exists anymore. But it was like the first initial. I'm in like a chat, it's like a chat room where you can like
Mhm.
share different files or videos and stuff like that. That's where I found a lot of the old school like combo videos and things like that. I met a lot of like people who ended up becoming more influential later on in the Smash
Right.
scene.
Yeah, and this is prior to like the boom of YouTube. So like
Yeah, this was
MySpace.
back before Brawl, so
Yeah, I
like
know, right?
definitely they're super duper, as you said, very humble beginnings, and that entire period, like despite the fact that I was like putting in the effort and trying
Mhm.
to learn and all that stuff, I think for 2 years straight, I did not win a single game in tournament ever.
Nice. Definitely been there, done that. That was me in Smash 4. That's where I started and was getting my ass reamed 90% of the time. So I feel
It's
you
like
when you going
it's very
0-2.
rough. It's very
Yes.
rough when you first start out because you don't know like the groundwork, so you don't know how you're supposed to put the pieces. You know what the puzzle is supposed to look like is you have the box, but you don't
Right.
know how you're supposed to put the pieces in the right order to start making the picture.
Right? Or you're gonna have some pieces in the right place and you think they're right, but when you go to implement those pieces in the box, they're not right at all. So you
Yeah,
have to
they don't hook
reconfigure it.
in.
Yeah, it's like a book. Uh, what have you? What obviously what are you known for up to this point for the viewers at home that aren't exactly aware of who you are?
So the biggest thing for me was Super Smash Brothers Brawl.
Hmm.
I was for the very early portion of the time. I was what I believe from what the Smashboards ranking was. I had the collective results to be what was considered at that time top 5 in the world, at least for like America, because
Hmm.
that was before Japan came over. I was the best King Dedede in the world in that game, and I was a very strong competitor. I was very good at being able to play like almost every character at very high level. I was one of the first people to implement specifically targeted. Like, I don't want to like make it sound a lot more intelligent than what my like little brain was thinking at the time, but it was just I would play like 5 or 6 really good characters at high level, and
Hmm.
I would have the ability to counterpick based on my opponent's weaknesses.
And that's a huge thing in the meta back in Brawl days because there was just very few in between characters that were viable compared to what we have nowadays in Ultimate. So like just you know the sheer aspect that you can main 6 of those characters or play them at a very high level is very very notable. It's one of those things like not very many people can tote that they could play that many characters at a very high level. So that's cool. What drives you to succeed in the community?
I think it's been very different
Mhm.
over. It's definitely something that's evolved as time has gone on. Back during Brawl, I just wanted to, well, I'm starting out. I want to be the best player in the world, kind of stuff like that.
Right.
And I'm seeing success, and I start to realize that I'm not going to be able to beat certain people, even though I'm trying. And so I set my goals a little lower, like, oh, I'm just going to try to be top 5 or top 10 or things like that. And I was very, very good at that. Smash 4 came out, and I wanted to try to see how well I was doing in that. And for whatever reason or another, I don't feel like the game very much clicked with me.
Mhm.
I got ranked the very first season for New Jersey. I think I was either sixth or seventh, and the game might not have clicked mainly because of the character choice that I was doing, but I was playing 3 characters I was excited to see were back or new, and it was
Mhm.
Dr. Mario, Little Mac, and Dedede.
Ooh, gross.
Yeah, I know it was terrible, but I did beat the people that mattered. Like I consistently beat Angel Cortez, I beat DK
Mhm.
Will, and a whole bunch of other people. And then around the time of Genesis 3, I was solely practicing Smash 4. And I was like one of the people that they were talking about, hey, these are like sets you might need to look forward to in the tournament. And like I was one of them with one of the players in my pool.
Mhm.
And I think at that point I would, because this was like a notorious thing early on in Smash 4 where players would just drown in pools or stuff like that
Yes.
that were like very noticeable. No, I think I was one of the very first people that happened with. And I was like, wow, what am I doing wrong? Yada, yada,
Mhm.
yada. But I had entered Melee for fun at that tournament. And for whatever reason, I made it to Wave 2 pools in winners and I won like 3 rounds. And then I
Nice.
was sitting there waiting for my flight home, like afterwards, and I was just like, I think I'm playing the wrong game. So I went to play Melee and I set out with a goal that I wanted to be within, because my standards for myself are always going to be based off of myself from Brawl.
Right.
And that's going to be like a hindrance to me forever in that sense. But I was like, okay, well, I know what I'm capable as a player with my understanding of Smash. I want to try to be sixth in my state in 6 months. I got, I think, seventh or eighth in 6 months, and then
Mhm.
it was just let's see how far I can keep going. I think the highest I ever got for Melee in New Jersey was fourth, and the whole time I was just like, I just want to try to get top 100 of the world. I want to try to get top 100 of the world. And then
Mhm.
there was one season where I think I almost was it, and then I started like having a little bit of my motivation like wane a little bit.
Mhm.
And then I heard that Ultimate was coming out, and I was like, hey, I'll try to give it a shot. And I joked with a bunch of the people in the New Jersey Melee Facebook group because this was before Twitter was like the main hub for Smash. I was like,
Right.
well, I heard a rumor that Simon Belmont might be in the game. So if they start this next direct announcing Simon Belmont, I'm gonna quit Melee and I'm gonna play Ultimate. And he was literally the very first thing that they showed in that direct. And I was like, well, goodbye, guys. And everyone's like, no, you'll be fine. You'll come back. Nobody quits Melee. And I quit Melee. And I started playing Ultimate. And my friend got like a little copy of it early on, like the day zero copies and stuff like that.
Oh, the ones that leaked early.
Yeah. And a lot of the Melee people wanted me to try out characters to see how they were feeling.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, this feels, when I was playing the game and I was like, wow, this feels a lot more fluid in general than how Smash 4 felt for me. That might not be the reality because I know there's always people that like certain aspects of how that game felt over this one. And I was playing and I was moving around and I was like, wow, DDD actually feels very fluid compared
Mhm.
to how I thought he felt in 4. So let me try playing this character and sticking with it. And I was sitting there grinding on Elite Smash. And then I sat there and I was like, huh, I think it was around like 10 years ago, I was the best DDD in the world, like unanimously for Brawl. So I was like, let me see if 10 years later I can basically do that. And so I just started doing that. And that was my goal for a very long time.
Nice.
That was
Now,
probably a much longer answer
yeah,
than you wanted. I'm sorry.
you're good, man. I love that. The wild tangents and going into stories is one of the main reasons why I wanted start this show in the first place was really showcasing people's personalities and stuff like that. So you're definitely doing a good job of that so far. Let let's dive into something. So obviously DDD, right? Uh, known for eating a lot, being the king, the proclaimed king of Dreamland. Where did that come from? Like, was that a love for Kirby, or like was that just something you gravitated towards, or how did that start?
So this is the part where I differ from almost every other DDD player that you're going to meet. I have no emotional attachment to Kirby or King Dedede at all.
Mhm.
Um, Brawl came out and I saw his crouch and I was like, wow, that looks really, really awesome. Let me try
Mhm.
playing this character. And then I heard Mewtwo King was also playing DDD at the time. So I was like, this is a
Mm.
character I like. He's got a cool crouch. And one of the best players in the world is playing him. So obviously, I'll be able to have somebody I can learn from.
Mhm.
And that was mainly it. And it went from there.
Nice. See, I was expecting like this backstory of like, you know, the Kirby coming out in the early 90s and you liking him, and then DDD gets announced as the main protagonist, and you're like, man, I see myself as like this villain in it for some reason, so I'm gonna go ahead and play the villain of this game when he got announced in Brawl. And I was thinking like going to this big story, but it was not at all, and that's fine. But
No, I was actually super excited for Snake in Brawl because
nice.
I love the Metal Gear Solid series, and I wanted to play him, and I thought it was super cool. And then he felt very, very weird and different, but
Mhm.
DDD didn't. So plus I at that point in time, I was playing Jigglypuff in Melee before, so DDD's jumps and his back air
That's fair.
kind of felt very normal to me.
I can see that, especially in the melee back air for Puff, which has gotten way worse throughout the years with the different game iterations, and
Yeah.
DDD's back air. I could see the resemblance there. Um, okay, let's see. All right, so you obviously being a 15-year vet in the scene. Uh, let's say you get the chance to make your perfect game. You can have game mechanics from any of the Smash games altogether, and you can just fuse them into one super game. What would that look like for you?
Well, I am definitely going to be one of those people that say I definitely prefer. You're talking about Smash games in general, right?
Yeah, you get to make your own Smash game. Period. Like you
Uh,
get to choose the mechanics and like everything. Like it's however
I
you want it.
would I would basically model it off of Melee, but use the Brawl buffer engine
Okay, that's
because that
fair.
that was a big thing. I don't want what PM was because I don't like what PM is in general, which is
Mhm.
very funny because there's a very very good PM player whose tag is also Atomsk. But I don't specifically like how that game feels. I don't like
Mhm.
what certain mechanics just because of how it's using Brawl's engine felt. But I would definitely want something along the lines of that. I don't want something like Ultimate where there's 8 million characters and they're all like pretty solid. But I also don't want something like 64 where there's only like two.
Yeah, 64. That's so sad. You get like Pikachu or Kirby, and then you have like Falcon every once in a while back when it first started, and then
Well,
maybe Puff
Yoshi's a super popular character
and
right now
Yoshi.
too.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah. So you're like maybe four at best, maybe.
Hmm.
But that's cool. Your own little conglomerate. Of the different games that you've played over the years. Let's go ahead and you like games, obviously, right? You've been playing the game for 15 years.
I
You
am,
you
in
want to play,
fact, gamer.
right? You want to play a game here?
Mm. Okay, what's up?
Okay, so you're gonna have 3 minutes. I'm gonna give you some players that are in your area, like the tri-state Jersey-ish. I can't talk. Jersey-ish area. I still
Yep.
can't talk. I can't pronounce it. You're gonna tell me based on if I when I give you that person if they are PGR level, regional threat, three tour, two tour, or O tour in your opinion, and you're gonna have 3 minutes to do this. Whenever you're
Uh,
ready, I'm ready.
it's going to be 3 minutes per
No, it's
game,
3 minutes
or
for the whole game.
okay, that's fine. Let's go for it.
All right, cool. First one's light.
Light's very blatantly PGR level. He's arguably top five in the world.
Right. Zomba.
Zamba's arguably top 10 in the world. He's PGR. He's got the results to be
Right.
top 10 at this point.
Jackal.
Jackal's very blatantly a top 30 player.
That's fair. Leon.
Leon is a top 30 player. If
Sy-
not, his results might be declining a bit, but he's definitely top 50, top 40.
right. Syrup.
Syrup, I think, is very arguably a PGR level player. He just doesn't. He's not as consistent as I think he wants to be.
Right. Quid.
Quid is very blatantly like a top 25, 30 player.
Raptor.
Raptor is a very strong regional threat.
Right. Dark Wizzy.
Dark Wizzy, I feel like he's either like just off the cusp of being PGR or is a PGR player. But we know how good Wizzy is, and how it's just a matter of like maintaining that consistency. Because some days he can beat like Tweak, and then other days
Mhm.
he's potentially getting like not even top eight at the tri-state events.
That's fair. That's fair. DK Will.
I think DK Will is a very strong player, but he's in between like a 3-2er currently or a regional threat.
That's fair. Mr. L.
I That's the Pikachu, right?
Yeah.
He's I definitely I saw him at one of the events. I know they're a very good player. They're definitely a regional threat.
Uh, Tweak.
That's very top five. He's either top five or top 10 player in the world.
That's fair. Lyrex.
I don't know who that is.
That's fair. They're a Roy player. But
Well,
it's okay.
that means then they're a threat in general. So yeah,
That's fair. Nine Super Pie.
Nine Super Pie is very good. Like, he's one of those players that I was always telling him that if he ever there was the slight thing that was missing from him off of Wi-Fi into real
Mm-hmm.
life, but if he ever fully got that, he's so good and super consistent.
Uh, Steven
Which one?
or Stefan.
Oh,
ST.
Stefan's very good. He's one of the main Steve players that tries to think the whole time and doesn't autopilot. So he's definitely like a very strong regional threat.
Nice. Sensei.
Sensei is a very strong 3-2er.
That's fair. Bosk.
Boosk is either one of the best players in the world or one of the most shit players in the world. It's very in between. He's definitely a regional threat.
Don't worry. We have those all over the Midwest, so I definitely understand where you're coming from. Good job. You
Uh,
definitely hit it out of the park on a lot of these.
I want to stress though, but that more often than not, Boosk is very very good.
I can understand that. You just have those moments every once in a while, so it's
Exactly.
understandable. But yeah, you did really good. I was gonna have a couple other ones that I was gonna add to the list, but I was like, I don't know if they would be considered in that tri-state area or if they would be like just outside of it. So we didn't put them in that. So
What were the names?
well, just some I was pitching around before like all together. I didn't. I had a bunch of names that I was trying to pull from, so I don't want to go through and take too much time to try to, you know, put
Oh,
it
good, no
all
worries.
together. So yeah, I had like so before we got together like 2 hours ago, I had about I'd say like 42 names. I narrowed it down to like 18. So like, I was like, yeah, but I don't think we got 3 minutes to be able to get 42 players. I mean, he
Well,
might have been able to, but like,
well, you chose the right ones for the most part.
yeah, yeah. All right. You also have to have those in MVD's words. They're called shitters, is what he calls them. And, like people that like you have those oddballs every once in a while. Yeah, it gotta keep you on your toes, you know. Uh, let's play it. Let's give you another cool opportunity. You're gonna get a dream scenario. It could be any place, anyone, anywhere. What would your dream scenario be? Like any tournament, like anything.
Like who would I want to play at a
Like,
tournament?
it could be anything. It's your dream scenario. It's whatever you want it to be. It could be like the
Because
grand stage of Evo, or it could be like some local that you wanted to win for years. Which I'm pretty sure at this point you've won pretty much every local at this point. But like, it's whatever you want it to be.
I mean, I guess if we're gonna go off of that, I don't really care much about Evo, but I top aided Genesises before they had like the giant main stage and like the
Mm-hmm.
auditoriums and stuff like that. So I guess like the only dream thing in that sense would be getting top eight at Genesis
Nice.
because I already made it to Summit. So
Yeah, that was hype watching you on at Summit. Like legitimately, you were one of the dark horses. I was like, they might make it in the Summit. They might not. It's one of those things. I was like, maybe. I hope so. But like, one of those things. And then when you got in, I'm like, no, I definitely am invested because for you guys at home, I been following Atomsk for a while, and then I really got the download on Atomsk as a player when we were headed to Smash and Splash because he was in my pool, the dreaded Smash and Splash where we had the waterfall pools. He was my first opponent, and I was talking to MJG, and he gave me the whole download on the situation, and we had a good set. I'm gonna tell you, like I was proud of that set. I still am. I'm like I almost got a game off of Atomisk. He was on last stock. He was at high percents, and he clutched a back air on me. And then the second game he obliterated me because I switched to Pikachu. But like that was just hype. And then I come to find out that my controller had issues. But that's one of those things. Like it just wasn't my tournament. But it's definitely one of those things. Like I'm glad to have you on the show. We're definitely not done. We've got some more stuff we want to dive into here real quick. What are some of the? This is like okay, so we've gone over a lot of the positives of the community, right? Dream scenarios, huge runs with DDD, stuff like that. Uh, Now we're gonna have to dive into some of the stuff that a lot of people don't want to talk about. Uh, this is the opportunity for you if you could change anything in the community, anything about the community or in the community. What would you do? How would you change it? Like this is your opportunity. This gives you your platform. Nobody here is judging you on your opinion on what should be done. This is just an opportunity to speak your words and let them be spoke.
I mean, in general, it's. I think the big thing that I wish happened more, and
Mhm.
like obviously you can't stop shit people from being shit people.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. A big thing that I wish happened more, and this is something that I feel like I prided myself on from when I got good at Brawl, that there's a lot of players that once they get good and then they get the notoriety and the clout and stuff like that,
Mhm.
it changes them. And it's a big thing where like it's one of those where you gotta respect, you gotta remember where you came from, that kind of shit that you hear. And I think there's too many people currently still,
Mhm.
but that once they blew up and they became big names or they got a lot more of like the followings and the tractions,
Mhm.
they just changed for the worse. And I wish there were more people that, for the most part, stayed the same. Like there's many players
Mhm.
that eventually we can't talk about anymore, where that kind of stuff happened, where
Oh yeah.
the person that I grew up with was very different than the person that they ended up being towards the end.
Oh, okay, yeah, I definitely know exactly who you're talking about when
There's a
you
lot
say
of
that.
people I'm talking
Yeah,
about in that sense, but it's
yeah,
just the
definitely a few
best thing
big
I
names.
can say is I wish people stayed humble as a whole more,
Mhm,
and if they did, there wouldn't necessarily be as much of a idea in their mind. Or I don't do this, so I'm not gonna. I guess the only way to word this is quote unquote temptation
mhm.
to abuse the status that they are given.
Yeah, it's holding the status quo, which you see a lot of professional athletes. What they get once they get to that level, they don't remember the little guy, right?
Yeah,
Like, oh yeah, I'm an NFL player now. I'm making millions of dollars, which we're not making anywhere close to that kind of money, guys. I'm not putting
yeah.
that in your
Imagine.
don't get that idea. We're not making millions here. Like, if you're lucky, you can live off of the money, but that's only if
That's
you're
it.
in the select few. But yeah, like they get that money, they goes to their head, they get the fame, and then they brush people off. But you do still see, even at the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, there are still people like you who are staying humble. You know, thanking the people at home. Hey, you're the reason why I got here, right? With your
I've heard.
time and dedication towards it, like, you know,
Yeah, I
like
think
what?
that a big thing that like made it click a lot more for me was
Mhm.
in that sense at the start of Smash Four, and I still hear it in for Ultimate now, but I heard a lot of people at the start of Smash Four being like, "You're the reason I play DDD" or stuff like
Mhm.
that, even when I wasn't playing DDD at the start of Smash Four. And I hear that a ton now in Ultimate as well, and it's always just like, well, I'm happy I laid the groundwork, but like that doesn't make me any different than like you know?
Right. Yeah, that's always cool. Like the humbleness in you, and definitely you're actually the second person in a row that I've had on the show where like even like the person that I had on the last episode was Icon, and
Oh, that guy definitely seems like he's awesome.
he just hit the big time, and he's still like super humble, great guy. We had a great interview. It was fantastic. Got to go over a lot of the crazy highlights he had up to in his Genesis run and glitch and stuff like that. But yeah, like it's
Well,
hard.
he doesn't use social media, right?
No, he doesn't. He's
Yeah,
like
that's
the
a big thing that's helping him as well, because a lot of
yeah.
people fall for the trap of social media.
Yeah, that's a huge thing as well. As he brought up a good point, and it's kind of like the same sentiment that you did. Was like people's personalities change based off of their circumstance. Like people who are humble people get the Twitter clout or whatever, and then like their head explodes. And he's like, I just never wanted to do that. I'm like, that's cool. That's cool. Now we've talked about some of the negative stuff. Let's go back to the positives. You know, you gotta have a sandwich, right? You know,
Yeah.
you can't have the bad and only the bad, and you can't have the good and only the good. This is actually the funnest question of the video, and it's the headliner of the whole thing. It's the marquee question, right?
Okay.
The show you're on is the crowning achievement, right? The reason why I wanted to create this show was to highlight people's uh, their expenditures, like their dominance, like what they feel like they could put at the end of the day. They could take the crown jewel, the crown, because I'm a K. Rool player, right?
Yeah.
Take that crown and put it on top of your head. What would you say your crown is, right? If we could have one, like it could be something you're super proud of, tournament run, something along those lines, like PGR wins, stuff like that. What would you be your crowning achievement?
I think mine is going to be a little different than what I think people would expect from me. I mean, obviously, everything I've done and like I guess the quote unquote legacy I have with DDD is probably the crowning achievement. But what I viewed as like the highest point for me, like the point where I realized like holy shit, I did it kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Back during Brawl, MLG was starting, and that was
Right.
a thing for a while. And I got to the point where I had to play, and if I made it to this point, this amount, I think it was like the top 16. If I made it to that portion of the bracket, that's when I was classified under MLG as a pro player, and they would like, they would pay me like the checks to go to the events and stuff just for
Right.
showing up. And I remember very distinctively, uh, I had to fight someone by the name of HR Nut. It was Red
Mm.
Halberd or Overlade's old I was his tag team, old doubles partner. And I remember the whole time I was just insatiate. There's no reason I should have been nervous at all because at that
Mm-hmm.
point it was someone I was much better than. And I only thought in my mind at the time was, if I do this and I make this happen, I basically achieved one of my dreams, being classified as what is a pro player.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was when I did that. That was what I feel like was one of the highest points. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
there's varying degrees of what I consider high. I think that was the biggest one for me in general because it was more so me proving to myself something that like, hey, I was able to do this. And
And that.
then there's
Mm-hmm.
the trade off of like now everything's very different. Like there are things I've accomplished now that would have been crazy in theory back then, but it's also the differences in scenes, like the size and whatnot.
Right. I mean, yeah, compared to Brawl, like Brawl days, there was like maybe 20,000 on. I would say a nice estimate of like 20 to 50, maybe 50,000 at most active players, and now we're looking at a player base of like
Over a million, basically. It's crazy.
easily
I would
like.
say modern era, I guess my crowning achievement would be the fact that I got to summit.
which
that's like it's a big thing because I feel like that I'm not gonna say that I am like the cause of like what if this happens now because
mm,
I'm not. But the fact that they allow I got into Summit and then I didn't completely shit the bed, like is it allow like sets a precedent for now. There's many players that the scene has to realize might not be considered like a top 10 player, but have the ability to be able to hang with these players and do well and potentially beat them.
right, yeah, you proved it. Like I remember when you'd gone through Summit and people are like, "Well, that's a waste of a slot. He's a DDD player. He's not going to be able to do anything at this tournament because you got to look at Summit, the Summit that Adamus got to go to. There was top tiers all the way through the bracket, like all the way through pretty much. And he was like the lone man on the totem pole, like that mid tier to low tier in character. And like it was him versus the world, and so many people were like, "Yeah, he's not gonna take a set at all. You know, he's gonna get bodied. He just wastes his spot." And then, you know, he made waves. Like he put up fights against the people that won the tournament, and the people that got second and third and stuff like that. And then he even beat somebody that was like considered like one of the front runners to do really good. So it was it was nice. It was a nice run. And we're definitely one of those things like you got to root for the little man, and DDD in that situation was the little man because he was
Yeah.
not the top tier, like the unexpected pick. Like, he was like the Dennis Rodman of, the Smash Summit world at that point, because Dennis Rodman, if you're not aware at home of sports lore, Rodman wasn't wanted in high school as a basketball player. He wasn't very good. Then he went to college, and they're like, he's not going to make it in college. And then he made it in college, and then they're like, oh, he's too rough to make it to the NBA. And he made it to the NBA, and now he's a Hall of Famer. So it's like one of those things, like the little things. You got to root for that little guy, the little engine that could. So that's.
People different in that aspect. There's different people use adversity, like different types of adversity and like hate
Mhm.
that they get or like hate as ways to either grow and excel to prove those that are looking down on you wrong,
Mhm.
or unfortunately, there are those that succumb to it.
Right.
And you need to be like in that example, like you're saying, he knew exactly how good he was. It didn't matter everybody else at the time, the powers that be, as he was getting improving, didn't
Mhm.
believe in him. He knew exactly how good he could be and how well he would be like further on.
Right. And speaking of going against adversities and stuff, I'm sure I would appreciate and Adamus would appreciate if you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. One of those things. Trying to face the adversity of climbing that hill of getting to 100 subs is the first peak of that hill, that major mountain, because you have to have 100 subs before you get the specific URL. So if you could help me out, it'd be greatly appreciated to get me to that number, because that's only the first step in miles away from getting anywhere close to monetization. But everybody that comes on the show is greatly appreciated and helping me along this journey because you have to enjoy this in order to do it. Like if you're not gonna enjoy it, what's the point in doing it?
Exactly.
Uh, this is a great time. You got to put in. You got to be the old coach Atomsk, right? You got to put on your
Okay.
ball cap. Get to draw the plays, whatever you want to, the reference you want to use. You could use it. Here's your chance. What kind of advice do you have for the people that are watching this at home, like the people that are in Twitch chat right now, the people that are home at YouTube that are watching it now or in the future? Advice for the players, the fans, the casters, the competitors out there. What kind of advice does Adamus give?
Well, there's the general advice that you gotta have fun with it.
Mhm.
But in terms of being a competitor, like if you're trying to improve and stuff like that, you can't sit there and focus on the number next to your name on like a ranking or after a tournament or anything for that matter. You have to sit there and feel like you learned something after any session you play, any tournament you enter. As long as you felt like you learned something and you played well, that's all you can want. Because at the end of the day, you can only play as well as you can on that given day.
Mhm.
It just is what it is. But if you are actually learning from it, even if you are playing poorly, then it starts to fill in the picture more of what we mentioned earlier of the puzzle. The
Right.
more you do that, the more pieces start appearing, the more everything starts to make more sense. It's far easier when you have more of the pieces. This is going to be like a no shit kind of thing, but the more pieces you have, the easier it is to fully get an idea of how you're supposed to go about making the picture.
Mhm.
Um, but too many people get too focused or tunnel visioned on, well, I want to be able to do this, I want this, I want to be here at this point. Despite the fact that I said that was my goal for certain things, it's good to be ambitious, but I feel like the younger the generations are getting, the more. My one teacher in school joked about this when I was younger, that
Mhm.
the generations are becoming more and more of the generations of instant pudding, where they want instant gratification rather than being the people to sit there and grind out and get the results they want with the hard work and effort. And that applies to everything. When regardless of if it's commentary, being a content creator for just in general,
Mhm.
uh, you need to sit there and put the work in, and you can't expect to have Rome be built in a day when it comes to anything. You have to put your time and effort in. You got to put your grind in, and you have to enjoy what you're doing. Because if you aren't enjoying it, then you're just working towards a goal that you're going to end up hating and tossing aside. If you are passionate and actually enjoy what you're doing, you'll be willing to deal with the hiccups and
Mhm.
the road bumps that come along the way, because you know this is what I want at the end of the day, and this is what I have to go through to get it. That's a big thing I notice in general currently with like commentators and stuff like that, where there's a lot of people that are very good on local levels or like for regional levels and things like that, but they get upset that they don't get like top eights at like the bigger events. They don't get to cast those and whatnot. And it's a matter of, you have to understand, you will get to eventually. Just right now, it might not be your time.
And
Because
that's
at the end of the day, we are all running on the same racetrack. Just certain people will start ahead of you, but you finish all the same.
that's an awesome sentiment. Like legitimately, like stay in your own lane kind of thing. Like you'll get there eventually if you keep putting in the work and grinding. You'll eventually get there. If you want to be that number one DDD player, you can eventually get there. Adamus can't play this game forever. So one of those things. uh, so now that we have that out of the way, you got to be Coach Lombardi there for a second. Uh, what future events do you have coming up? Do you have anything big that would like to, hey, this is where I'm gonna be at, kind of thing?
So I'm in a little bit more of a odd spot where this was a year where I wanted to be going to a lot of things, and then COVID happened, and a lot of events
Right.
COVID continued to surge, I guess is the better way of wording that,
Mhm.
and events started getting rescheduled. So it definitely it definitely messed with a lot of the timing for things I wanted to do. So, in particular, I know there's like monthlies and stuff in my state that I'm going to be going to. Outside of that, with work, I don't think I have the ability to go to many things outside of like maybe Super Smash Con, maybe Shine, like things that are like within like a 10 hours of me, where we could I can see a group of us foreseeably like driving there and things like that. But in terms of like other events, I guess it mainly would be like Apex. I'm going to be going to because it's in New Jersey. Super
Nice.
Smash Con and Giant are relatively like close to me, so I go to those. I think if Riptide happens, I might go to that.
It
But
is happening.
it's all playing it by ear based around my work schedule, because I very unfortunately don't get to play Smash full time. I am grown up and I have to work and I have to pay my bills and whatnot.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, the day grind. We're not children anymore. We're both we're both
Exactly.
considered getting into that point where we're going to be middle age here in the next few years. So like one of those things, like you have to have a day job in order to play your hobby. So like,
Yeah, exactly.
do you have any shout outs or anything you'd like to promote at this point?
Well, number one, I'm going to shout out the obviously twitch.tv/fireblaster65. Please follow all that. Um, but I appreciate a lot of the people from my local scene because the older you get, and especially with what happened in the scene like a year or two ago,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the people that I grew up with are no longer around. So the fact that there's still people that I feel are welcoming, obviously, because every scene's going to have like the welcoming, like super awesome people and whatnot. But
Right.
the fact that there's always going to be people around in my area that I always have the ability to hang out with and enjoy, players like Jackal, who I don't think gets enough credit and should get far more credit than he actually does. Like Jackal's awesome, a great person, incredibly talented and underrated player.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's like the big one. There's obviously the players that like from my region that I'm super cool with, like the Larson and Con, uh, Sinatra, who is low key one of the very good commentators that doesn't get enough credit.
I've heard
And a
their
lot of the
stuff. They're definitely good. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
and then there's a lot of I joke around with it, calling it the DDD Den, but whenever I go to MDVA,
Mm-hmm.
I generally go with Guerrero, who's from Philly,
Nice.
and we hang out with a lot of the older because Guerrero's I'm the youngest person out of that group, which is crazy to think about this, but hang out with Guerrero, Loco Lobo, Soul Train, a lot of very enjoyable people who are like old men that play DDD. I don't know why this character attracts that. They either attract obnoxious, annoying, terminally online people, or old men with jobs that just like to dick around with the penguins.
Like the cranky Kong is all I could picture. Is like rocking in the chair, like with shaking his cane. But yeah, I definitely feel that. My character is the exact opposite. All of our King K rules for 90% of them are all the young gen. Like the kids are like, oh, I just graduated high school. I'm like, cool. Like, I did that over a decade ago. Like,
Yeah,
congratulations.
exactly.
But yeah, where can we find you at? Like, if we want more Atomisk, like more of the DDD knowledge, we want to absorb the penguin. Like, we want to, just absorb it more. Where can we
Uh,
find that?
well, I would promote my Twitter, but the big thing is I feel like I'm definitely far more of a shitter on Twitter than I actually am like trying to, I guess, be about Smash Brothers. I still do that, but it's more so me just having fun with my friends or just
Right.
being an ignorant asshole. Uh, I think that's mainly it right now. I used to stream, but I don't do that as much anymore. I was only doing that during the pandemic just because I was already entering all the Wi-Fi events and it was a good
Mhm.
opportunity. But I didn't really enjoy streaming much.
Yeah.
But yeah, just follow me on Twitter. I'm generally like a very easy to talk to person, unless you're like a dick to me for whatever reason. That I'm gonna match your energy right back at you.
Like I said, I can attest to that because we had that set, and then you know hung around, asked you a bunch of questions on what I should do and what I shouldn't do, and he gave me a bunch of advice. The first thing he told me was, "Don't play Pikachu in that matchup." he's like, I have way too much knowledge in the Pikachu versus DDD matchup, so don't do it. And the just so you know, I don't play Pikachu anymore. I actually haven't even touched a character. I touched the character like maybe twice, and like maybe two smaller locals, but other than that, like I haven't played the character since. You're like, don't do it. I'm like, okay, that's fair. Like I stuck to one of those things. Like you stick to what your elders' statements give you that options. You gotta
Yeah,
You gotta follow it, like one of those things. But thank you so much, Atomsk. It's been a pleasure. Enjoyed you being on the show. Follow him on Twitter if you want to get some more of that penguin knowledge. You know, the technical stuff of his character. Definitely, this is the dude to find it. But yeah, that's gonna be the end of this show today. Tomorrow's episode is gonna be a good one. We got Viram from over in the UK. He's gonna be on the show. He's actually willing to stay up early mornings just to be on the show, so we greatly appreciate that. Then next week we got a couple of smaller ones going into Apollo Kage at the end of the week, so that's gonna be a fun time. My name is Fireblaster. You can follow me on Twitter at Fireblaster65. On Twitch, you're watching this here. You can follow me now if you can. If not, that's fine. You could also find me at Fireblaster65 here on Twitch. And if you haven't followed me on, subscribed to me on the YouTube yet, and you're watching this now, would greatly appreciate your time in committing to me as a YouTuber, because we're only going to get better from here, and we actually have a massive person going to be up on the show next month at the beginning of the month. No spoilers yet. You can look forward to that trailer next Friday. Want to hype it up. It's going to be a great episode. Somebody that, is very magnetizing for the Smash community. So it's going to be a very fun episode. But thank you so much for tuning in. My name's Fire Blaster again. Have yourself a fantastic rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you tomorrow for Virum. Thank you guys.